make sure I hit mute on this bad boy, and then we'll probably go for like 30, maybe 40 minutes. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure, man.
Perfect. All right. I think we're live. Welcome back. Repeat guest, Dr. Kurt Phillips from Cityway Animal Clinics, Square Cat Vinyl. What is going on, Kurt? You're one of my favorite people, man. What's up?
Likewise, Fabian. Hey, life is good, man. We are really doing well, and super proud to be here today with you. Absolutely.
Well, welcome. Where are you at right now? I know I've been to your house, but I don't think people.
Yeah.
And you don't need
I'm at my home in Fountain Square. Yeah. So the place I'm spending most of my evenings, and any chance that anytime I'm not at work, I'm right here, and it's a nice place to be. We're right in the heart of Fountain Square, and I got a beautiful view of the city, and my wife is with me, and my son, who's a Butler student, is home, of course, doing distance learning, and that's really amazing to have him home. I didn't expect to have him home until this summer. He was going to spend one last summer with us before he ended up being a real adult, and now I get to spend extra time with him, so it's been really fun.
That's awesome. And we'll get into this later, but I love during these conversations that we had of just looking at some of the silver linings, right? Like things that are happening or positions that you've been placed into that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So I think we can spend a little bit of time later talking about that. But let's give people a refresher. I mean, you were like an OG guest on the show. It was within the first year, I believe, within the first 100 episodes.
I think it was, 90 something.
Yeah. Give these wonderful people a rundown on who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so I am the owner of a couple of companies. The primary company that I spend the most of my time on is Cityway Animal Clinics, and it is a larger company that owns several smaller LLCs or small practices, we call them, and those are our first one in the downtown Indianapolis area was Mass Ave Animal Clinic. And then a couple of years later, we opened up Fur Pet Spa and Grooming and Wellness Clinic. And then we opened up Fountain Square Animal Clinic a couple of years after that. And then a year and a half ago, we opened up Fall Creek Place Animal Clinic. And then we are actually getting ready to open up Irvington Animal Clinic. Actually, it's going to be called Cityway Animal Clinics - Irvington. Actually, all of those names have changed. We're going to be called Cityway Animal Clinics - wherever the location is. So Irvington is our first one that's officially called Cityway Animal Clinics Irvington, and it is opening up in May, and it's right on Washington Street, right across from some really cool places. Tommy Dance store, the James Dance store is right there, Giacomo Pizza, Black Acre.
Yeah,
right
yeah. I know exactly where you're going to be. That's a great location.
Absolutely, it is.
Is this the biggest one of all your clinics or no?
Physical size, it will be the biggest one for sure. And we're going to put a call center in there and our corporate headquarters as well too. So that'll be a place where all of the phone calls will come into from all of our clinics. And then our call center people will be able to help our clients determine what's the best place for their pets to be seen, like based on where they live or based on what type of services they're looking for, or based on if they have a special doctor that they really, really enjoy. Yeah. Our call center will be able to find that doctor and find them the right spot. So in addition to that, Cityway Animal Clinics takes up 90% of my time. I was also one of the co-founders and the co-owners of Square Cat Vinyl in Fountain Square. So also super proud of that place too.
And then I think you're leaving one thing out. It's a program that I recently became involved with as a result of being a friend of yours. But you started All Decades Club. So talk a little bit about what you're doing with that.
Excellent. Yeah, I did forget about that. It's not a business, but it's definitely an organization that I'm really super proud of. A couple of years ago, I kind of identified that a bunch of the people in my life that were really, really close to me were either 10 years younger than me or 20 years younger than me, or like almost exactly 10 years older than me. I felt like I didn't have enough of the people older than me in my life. And so I kind of wanted to find more people that were 10 years older than me to be a mentor to me. But we started this thing called All Decades Club, and it started off with a list of people that I knew, and we invited 160 people to the dugout one night, and 85 guys showed up. And what we did was I kind of commandeered their ages and then put everybody at a table. So like, let's say I'm born in 1970. If someone was born in 1980, they were at my table. And if someone was born in 1990, they were at my table. So everybody was separated by 10 years apart. And then we just have a list of 15 different topics, and It could be anything from work-life balance to professional life to community involvement to sex to travel to the passions of fun.
By the way, sex has not been a topic that's been chosen
Well,
yet.
so what we do is we pick two topics every night, and every time we do this, and everybody votes on what they want to talk about, and then we pick two topics, and then we spend a half an hour on those topics. And I have little cards that have kind of leading questions about that topic, and then the guys sitting at that table will just share and just learn from each other and take notes and make relationships. It's not a networking event. Nobody's supposed to bring their cards. I don't have only one accountant in the room kind of thing. There's no sales pitches. There's no speeches. It's just guys sitting at a table talking about cool shit and learning from it. And and the first time we had it in October, I think last year, right, Fabian? We had one in October and one in January. Is that right? Yeah, I think so, that's about right. I had guys calling me up afterwards saying, "Oh my God, like my life has been changed. Like I met some guys and I learned stuff from people that was just incredible, and tears were shed and laughter was had, and I just really, really happy with that." So yeah, if anybody out there is listening who wants to be a part of that, it's not a closed scenario. Like if you know anybody who went, the goal is that once you come, you can invite as many people as you want, and then I just put them on the guest list, and then we just grow. And so, unfortunately, yeah, we were supposed to have our next one on May 20th of this year at the Dugout, and there's a possibility that could happen, but I don't necessarily think it. So we talked about having a Zoom meeting, but I don't know how effective 85 men on a Zoom meeting would be. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and it's been a pleasure to be able to attend both of those. I've always left feeling very grateful and thankful to have gone through the experience. So if anybody is listening that is interested, I think you guys even set up a website, right? It's alldecadesclub.com.
Yeah. That's right, exactly. Alldecadesclub.com. There's a Facebook group that you can ask to be a part of. There's a website. We have some merch now, which is pretty cool. We have a t-shirt and a hat. Very simple, All Decades Club. It's got a nice skyline view of the city. And on the back, the tagline is creating better humans. So yeah.
Love it. So the whole reason I wanted to talk to you, I mean, we text quite often, and your text was awesome. It's like, hey, do you want to talk to somebody who's running businesses right now? It's had to close some businesses, is opening a new business, and has been affected personally, like health-wise, by COVID. And I was like, hell yeah, we do. So I'm like really excited to dive into all that. So how has coronavirus impacted your business life, your personal life? How have you been handling it all?
Well, let's start with the business. The reality of it is that coronavirus affected a couple of my businesses by the fact that they were non-essential. Square Cat Vinyl stayed open for a little bit, but once the governor said that, we were closing non-essential businesses, we adhered to that. One of my partners, Patrick Birch, is in there regularly, and he's fulfilling online orders. So shout out to him, and shout out to the fact that we can ship vinyl to people. I heard the podcast yesterday with the Hundleys, and they were talking about how vinyl music has become a new part of their life. And I mean, it just made my heart just leap once, for that, because I've always known that vinyl records are really cool and special. And you're right, and he was right when he said it. It slows you down and it makes you appreciate where you are at that moment. And if you can enjoy that record with a loved one and talk about it and not be able to jump from track 1 to track 9 and then say, oh, now I also want to listen to some Beyonce right here. No, it's like, it's 45 minutes of concentrated effort on music. And that is really soothing, I think, to our communities right now to have that. So Patrick is there. So if you are out there and you want to get into vinyl, if you have a turntable, please order records. He'll send them to you. And you're supporting.
I got mine super, super quick. I think within I ordered on a Thursday and I had them on like Monday.
Yeah. And so, to go along, to dovetail on that, unfortunately, I'm not going to lie, we had to lay all of our team members off, who were working at Square Cat. We're fortunate that, only 2 of those people relied on their salary from Square Cat to survive. Most of our team members at Square Cat Vinyl they just do it because they love it, right? They're doing it in the evenings, or they might log in 8 hours a week, but they just love working at a record store. So, but we had a couple of team members who, that was their bread and butter, and that is really sad to have to lay them off. But luckily, as you know, unemployment benefits are good right now, and people are being cared for by our government and from our unemployment. So So I don't think any of our team members are really suffering from the lack of salary there, but they're ready to get back to work for sure, man. That's really there. So that's one. Our fur grooming salon, also non-essential. I could have probably argued that because it's owned by a veterinary company, and veterinarians were deemed essential by the AVMA and by our governor and by pretty much everybody. But we just took the right attitude that we're going to shut down, just like our friends who are barbers and hairdressers right now. We felt the same with them, and so yeah, there are going to be a lot of gnarly dogs out there when we open back up again, which we are planning on opening back up on May 4th. So because last week the governor said that we could do that, so we're opening fur back up. So anybody who wants to get their dog groomed, give us a call. We're going to be in there on May 1st, rescheduling all of our current clients, and then slowly and surely working back up to full practice mode there. As far as our veterinary offices, though, Fabian, we've been full tilt ever since. Like nothing has changed. Well, I shouldn't say that. We've changed some of the things of how we do. We're not letting clients into the building. We're meeting them at the door. We're doing a lot of our conversations about their pet's health over the phone and via FaceTime. And on really nice days, we do go outside, wearing a mask. And if the client is wearing a mask, and we stand several feet apart, and that way you can at least talk to people about what their pet's experiencing, their pet's inside, and I can at least go out there and say, kind of calm their nerves and say, your dog's okay, and this is what we're doing for your dog or your cat, and that's been really good because you lose a lot when you're on the phone.
Yeah.
And empathy is hard to convey when you're talking to someone who's concerned about their pet and you're on the phone and you're not looking at them. And I've had a couple of tearful conversations with people, and I just hate that because I really want to reach out to them and put my hand on their shoulder, or just tell them everything's going to be okay, and you just can't. It's tough. So that's been tough. But as far as our business goes, we're busy. We're caring for people's patients and their pets, and we're doing what we can, and we're essential, and we're an essential worker who can't work from home. So that's been tough, and that's why it's opened up some danger to us, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But that's part of being an essential worker. I mean, we talk a lot about healthcare workers who are on the front lines, and God love them all for what they're doing. We talk a lot about, people who are doing the carryouts for food and such, and how they're putting themselves at risk so that people can have food. Definitely people working at the grocery stores, God love them. Geez, that's incredible talent and danger for them, but it's necessary, right? And so we signed up for this a long time ago. When I became a veterinarian in 1996, I knew what I was getting into, and to be essential is something that I'm very proud of, but it worries me and our team every single day, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, if you're still coming in contact with people are still coming in kind of like normal. Do you think that any of the changes that you guys have had to make are things that you're like, man, this is going to be helpful for when things get back to normal? Like we've been able to become more efficient or provide better value as a result of some of the changes that we've had to make?
I've thought about that for a long time because I've heard that question being touted by a lot of different industries, and it's probably not. There's not much that we're going to continue doing because we're just losing that human contact. That's the hardest part about it. I think it's helped us to say, there are other ways of diagnosing, and we can, utilize the technology, Zoom meetings and FaceTime and things like that. So when people maybe, if in the future their schedule prohibits them from coming in, we'll be more attuned to doing drop-off care and things like that, and being able to communicate better that way. But I as a clinician, as a person who's diagnosing and prescribing and doing surgeries, it's hard for me to ever devalue that interaction between the owners, because our patients can't talk. So I've got to have the owners telling me what they're observing and what they're seeing and what they're concerned about. And you can still do that over the phone, but there's nothing like being able to have the owner point and say, this is what I'm worried about.
Right. So talk a little bit about, you guys are an essential business. You kind of hinted to that being a potentially dangerous position to put yourself in, because you are being exposed to people that are out there. A lot of people might be asymptomatic, things like that. And I know we've had conversations where you ended up getting sick. So talk a little bit about that. Like, how did it all go down? How did you realize?
Yeah, in the early stages of, so I think that I had a list. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks since I was actually physically ill, and we had 3 team members and then two. Well, we had 6 team members get sick all at the same time, and of us, 3 were tested positive, and myself and one of my other staff members who probably had the worst of the clinical symptoms, we were tested and we were tested negative. And I was tested negative about 2 or 3 days after I was really asymptomatic.
Mhm.
And so the problem with that was in the early stages, Eli Lilly and company has been doing a tremendous job of helping our communities get tested. But in the early days, they were very clear that, like, listen, we have this ability to open up our testing center, but it's got to be only for healthcare providers, frontline nurses, respiratory technicians, doctors, EMTs, firefighters, things like that. And I believe that wholeheartedly. One of my best friends is really heading up that whole testing center over there, is really helping out. And he said, Kurt, I really want to get you tested, but right now we're doing only this. So then a couple of days later, he was able to get me in and get me tested. And I truly believe that it was probably too late. I believe that my test was done. I was feeling great when I got tested, and I was tested negative. But my symptoms were in tandem with 3 of my team members. We had the exact same symptoms. They all started the same day. They all ended the same day, and we all got better, and we all got back to work on the same time. But we followed the CDC guidelines on that and got back to work when we could.
What were the symptoms that you guys were experiencing, and how did you feel physically? Like what did it compare? Like what could you compare it to?
Like right away, you wake up one morning with us, all of my team members, we all have been talking a lot about this, and we all woke up one day and said, "Oh shit! Like I'm sore all over the place. My body ached, my hips, where I felt like maybe like I slept wrong, or like maybe I slept too long. You ever get that, like when you just really, really veg and you wake up like 14 hours later and you're like, damn, I should get up and go for a run or something because I slept in this bed too long. I thought that's what it was. And I got up and I'm like, I did some yoga and I thought I'm going to just work my way out of this. And it just kept getting worse. And by like 3 o'clock that afternoon, I thought I better go take my temperature. And I did. And I was, febrile. So I had a fever. And so I immediately, that's the hardest part. I looked at my wife and I said, I'm going into my room, and I didn't know, what was going to happen. You just leave and you just go into a room and you wonder if that's going to be the last time you talk to someone, for a while, because you're quarantining, right? It's tough. But God love her. She brought me food, 3 times a day, and we FaceTimed a lot. She was in my in our first floor, and I was in our second floor, and we FaceTimed a lot, and we just got through it. I was very fortunate. Like my aches and pains and respiratory stuff lasted 3 to 4 days tops. That was it. Yeah. And then I was better. About a week or 2 after that, I was still feeling like, I wasn't doing my exercises as strongly as I was doing them. I wasn't really had full energy, but as far as this cough and the fever and everything, that lasted 3 or 4 days.
And I see you getting a little bit emotional about it all. And, you got to kind of put this into context. Were you worried because of everything that is on the news? It's just like, fuck, I could die. Like I hear you saying this could be the last time, and I'm getting chills thinking about it because I would hate it to be put in that position. But
and in full disclosure, maybe this is something I haven't really shared with a lot of people, but my wife and I got in a fight that morning. We're sheltering in place, and we're like doing everything we were supposed to be doing except for me going to work, right? She has a job in construction that she can actually work from home, and so she hadn't really left the house in 2 weeks. And then I, wake up and I'm symptomatic, and I look at her, and we had a discuss, I say a fight, but typical stuff that husbands and wives go through that day. And then she went to go to the grocery store shopping that day because we were out of food. And when she came back, I said, I'm feverish. I'm going upstairs. And I thought, this is not the way to end this fight, and it was sad. And I thought, if this is it, if I get really, really sick here over the next 4 or 5 days, that's going to be a really shitty way for me to get sick, Luckily it didn't work. It worked out great for me. And, through the next couple of days, we talked a lot, and we worked through our disagreement, and we're coming through this stronger. My wife and I are actually looking back on this time, and like we're just really excited about just strengthening our relationship through all this. Yeah.
And then you started to get back on kind of like the upswing, swinging better, and then I think I texted you after just to check in, and you said, well, shit, I think Julia has it now. So like, how far between when you got better and she started to come down with
So
symptoms?
I came out of quarantine like on a Sunday, and which was like 11 days after I had my first symptom, um, and then like the next day, she started showing clinical symptoms.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, and
Well, you
hers lasted longer. Like I said, hers were a little bit more severe. I mean, she had the cough. I never had cough.
Mhm.
She did, and her cough persisted. And one night it was pretty strong, and it was like like she spent all night long coughing. And I sat outside of her room, listening and hoping and praying that she'd get to go to sleep, that she'd get the rest that she deserved. The next morning, we woke up, and I opened the door and brought her breakfast and said, you coughed an awful lot last night. Are you okay? And she's like, I didn't even realize I was coughing. So, I mean, she literally coughed through her sleep all night long. It scared the crap out of me. But
Oh, I can imagine.
that was the only point where I thought, if she's not better by tomorrow, I'm going to have to do some things. But we worked with a healthcare provider, and we got some breathing treatments for her, some albuterol, and they put her on a Z-Pack just for secondary infection kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what Joy and I truly believe helped the both of us is that as soon as we realized we were symptomatic, we upped our game, and as far as meditation, yoga, we really got into Wim Hof breathing techniques. As soon as we felt like we were a little bit better, I know that this is maybe a little bit not what you're supposed to do, but we went on walks,
Mhm.
and we just made sure we stayed way far away from everybody. But I was not going to not go on walks when it was when it was 70 degrees out during my quarantine time. I got out and walked. I mean, I felt good enough to do so,
Right.
so I felt like I should do that. But I truly believe that positive attitude, yoga, meditation, breathing exercises. The guy from Chris Cuomo, who's the governor of New York's brother, who's a newscaster, he said the same thing. That what got him through coronavirus was keeping moving. That virus wants you to lay down. The virus wants you to accept defeat. The virus wants you to say, I can't do this. And if you say fuck you, virus, I think a lot of people are going to get better.
Yeah, well, and I mean, there was a study that I shared, and Jared shared it as well, just about how overall health and wellness is one of those things that helps so much in not getting the virus, right? And I think that there was studies showing like this huge tie to obesity. And I mean, I don't really want to go down that road right now, but there are factors that include health, right? So we're thinking walks, yoga, what you're eating, how you're sleeping, that do aid in whether or not you're probably going to get something like that. So I don't doubt that that was helpful in your recovery.
Immunology, is an amazing field of science, right? I just read an article yesterday on medium.com that talked about that, people have different immunology, and you can kind of look back on your history and go, hey, I'm not a person who picks up a cold very much, or when I do get a cold, it's very short, or,
Right.
I've never had the stomach flu. I've never in my entire life had the stomach flu. So I'm hoping that I have this really amazing immunological system that just is better at processing things. People who have a lot of allergies and whose immunological system is super hyper reactive, I truly believe as a clinician that those are the ones who are suffering more and having harsher symptoms, because this is a virus that preys on your immune system, and when your immune system goes overboard to try to attack it, that's when you have kind of like ancillary damage, right? So I always help my clients who have dogs with allergies is that allergies are like an inappropriate response of your immune system to something that's not a big deal. Like ragweed pollen is never going to kill a dog, but man, it can make a dog itch like crazy from like August 15th to October 1st. It's because that dog's immune system is just hyper reactive.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening. I'm not a human physician. I'm not purporting to be one, but I think that's what's happening with COVID is that some people's immune system are just super hyper reactive. And so they get a virus and their immune system hyper reacts, and then their lungs are badly damaged because of it.
Yeah. All right. Give me 1 second. This is the bad thing about being on Zoom is there's things that go on in your house. So give me 1 second. Just hold tight.
All right, go ahead.
Have you ever seen my cats?
Yeah, on Instagram. There you go. Pretty sweet.
um, so everybody's better now, right? And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Jill and I are completely back to full health, and we feel great. And I mean, I'm anxious to see an antibody test that's actually got it's very specific for COVID-19 come out. I think that the first wave of antibody tests are going to be capitalizing on everybody's fear, and they're not going to be very sensitive or specific. The coronaviruses have been out there for a long, long time. And so if you take an antibody test and it says you've been exposed to a coronavirus before, that's not necessarily COVID-19. So, but if I can ever figure out that I'm, have antibodies against COVID-19 because of what I went through, I'm going to be really happy, honestly.
That's awesome. And you mentioned your son Jude. He's been at home with you, and no issues with him or anything like that.
Dude, I think the 20-year-olds are like these. I think they're superhumans. He was he was in Europe for spring break, and whether was a bad choice or not, I don't know. I mean, he came home and he was one of those people who was 7.5 hours in the customs line at O'Hare Airport.
Oh, geez.
I mean, what a frantic time that was. When Trump decided upon a travel ban, my son was in Germany, and I shit my pants. I'm like I got to get him home like right now.
What do you even do?
I bought a $6,000 plane ticket for him to come home the next day, which he missed the flight because the trains in Germany to Paris, the train workers were on strike.
Still.
So he sat on a train trying to get to Paris, where I had a one-way ticket booked from him to come from Paris to Atlanta. He missed that flight, and then he just took his original flight home out of Paris 2 days later. But that routed him through Chicago O'Hare on that Saturday night when everybody and every American was trying to get home.
Yeah.
And, so he was literally in an incubator of COVID for 7.5 hours. So there's thoughts that perhaps he brought it home, and we don't know. I mean, he never had a single clinical symptom, but there are a lot of young people who are just sailing through who probably would have high levels of antibodies and never would have known that they ever had it. Honestly.
Yeah, that's crazy. To kind of think back about that. So is there anything else that you kind of want to hit on that stuff that's been going on? I know I sent you a message. I want to give people some recommendations on music, books, movies, things that they can be doing now, since we're still all stay at home. But I want to make sure that we hit on all the other stuff as well.
Yeah, I just want to implore people out there to just realize that there's a whole bunch of different type of essential workers, and they are all doing their best to keep those companies running, and just support them as much as you possibly can. There's a lot of people who are staying at home, and that's what they're supposed to be doing, and I applaud them as well. But just realize that there's a bunch of people who can't stay at home, and so try not to judge people if you see them in their cars or if you see them doing whatever, because you have no idea where they're going or what their responsibilities are or what they're going through. And I want people not to focus completely just only on, hospitality workers who have lost their job. I mean, there's a lot of people who've lost their job. I mean, I know it, and a lot of bartenders and a lot of servers and stuff. Yeah, that's a community that I love and I hold dear to my heart. But they're not the only ones out there who are unemployed right now. And definitely, let's give a huge shout out to every nurse, every ICU worker, every not even just nurses. I mean, there's people who are not nurses working in hospitals. There's orderlies, there's janitors, there's everybody who's keeping everybody alive. And I just want them to feel the love, because it's hard being an essential worker who has to leave their home every day. And then we come home and we see on the news, stay the fuck home. And I'm like, I'd love to stay home, but I can't.
Right. Well, and you have no idea. Yeah. I mean, and the stuff that they see, I'm sure is tragic as well. And they've got to carry that with them as also. So
you bet.
Yeah. I mean, huge shout out to them. So Kurt, you're a huge music guy. You're obviously part owner of a record store. So give me 3 recommendations. What should people be listening to? What should people be listening to right now? Or what are you listening to right now?
Well, before all this broke, I think it was March 12th or 18th, or I don't know, the first week or so, Julie and I had tickets to see one of our favorite bands, and it's called, the band is called Camp. And they're a folky band out of Columbus, Ohio. And that's really has always been my genre, as singer-songwriters, folk Americana, kind of like just people who can play guitar or a mandolin, or any of those people who write music, people who can sing in harmony. That just makes me really, I mean, I just love those bands. So I was at the beginning, I was listening to a lot of Camp because I was kind of preparing for the show was at the Vogue, was supposed to be at the Vogue, and of course it got canceled. So at the beginning, I listened to a lot of them. Now that my son's home, he has exposed me to so many different genres.
Yeah.
R&B, electronic R&B. Frank Ocean is one of my favorites that my son introduced me to. In preparation for Bonnaroo that you and I were supposed to go to in June together. I was working my way up the bottom I always go from the bottom of the Bonnaroo list to the top because I know all the headliners. So I always try to explore all these undercarriage of that festival. And I came across a couple there that I'd love to talk about. Yeji is a Korean American artist, and she's out of Brooklyn. Her stuff is fire, like incredible, like very electronic, very sultry, very think not dance club in Vegas, but think really great cocktail bar in Vegas. It's playing some really cool vibes. Like she's incredible.
Yeah.
Mutual friend of ours, Adam Odgaard, introduced me to her a while back, and I've never turned back. And she just dropped a new album a week and a half ago, and it's incredible. So definitely,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. I think I sent you a text that was one of her tracks, and I forget which one. I think it's called "When I Grow Up." It's like my favorite track of 2020 so far.
Her stuff brings me to tears on a regular basis. And then a fun one who was on the Bonnaroo lineup is Mark Rebelet. I think that's how you say it, or Rebelet. I'm not sure if he goes by the French pronunciation or not, but look his YouTube stuff up. It is just incredible. He's a looper and a one-man band, and he's so funny and irreverent, and he just improvs. Like one YouTube show that I watched, people were giving him funny prompts, almost like you were going to shout out to oh my God, what's the improv place on Mass Ave?
Sports.
Yes. It's like Comedy Sports for music. Like the guy takes a topic and then he makes a song and he loops it all by himself. And you're like, I don't know how that's not rehearsed, but he's just an incredible artist. So Mark Rebelet, I would say those are my top 4 right now for sure.
Well, and shout out to him because I sent, there was my wife's work. I'm in a chat group with them as well. And I sent them that song to play, the ass song or whatever, to play in their limo. They were on some little work trip for celebrating something. And I was like, oh, you guys got to play this. They didn't know what hit them.
Incredible. Good stuff.
Okay. So how about some movie recommendations?
When Jude came home, he asked, the very first night, he said, Dad, let's watch 1917. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it is just amazing. It's I don't know what the technology is called, but it's all supposedly one screenshot. It's like a camera that never moves. Of course it does move, and of course there's splicing and all that kind of stuff. They didn't film 2 hours and 17 minutes in one shot, but it looks that way, and it's amazing. It's about World War I, and it's just incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, that's been my favorite movie of COVID quarantine.
Yeah, it's one that I've been wanting to watch, so I'll take your recommendation. Have you seen Lighthouse yet?
No, what's that one?
Oh man, it's black and white. It's got I believe it's William Dafoe, and the guy that plays he was in that 70s show. I forget what his name is. Chris, maybe.
Okay.
His name is Chris, or Topher Grace.
Yeah.
He played Spider-Man. So it's shot in black and white. It's an A24 production movie, and it's apparently really, really good. I haven't seen it yet.
Cool. Good. TV wise, I've been, I blasted through High Maintenance season 4 because it's my favorite TV show of all times, and it came out right before COVID, and it dropped one episode every Sunday night. I think it was Sundays, but it had 9 episodes, and it's just incredible TV. If you don't watch High Maintenance on HBO, you definitely have to watch it. What I love about High Maintenance is that they go through all the different types of people. Of course, it's set in Brooklyn, so you have the world as your canvas, in New York City. But every different type of person, color, race, sexuality, whatever, and they just explore this without any kind of judgment whatsoever. And it's incredibly well written TV.
And there's really no storyline, right? I think the only
weed dealer. It's about a weed dealer who delivers weed to people, and right. I always tell people, listen, you watch one episode of High Maintenance, and if you don't come out of that show thinking you want to hang out with the guy, the weed dealer, because he's just the most kind, most perfect, just human being you'll ever meet. If you don't want to hang out with him, then I don't think you and I can be friends, because I want him to be my best friend. Absolutely.
I love your definitive statements like that. I love when you make them. Okay, so books. I'm really hot on books right now. I've become like a huge reader, and I'm going to show you.
I saw you got Cormac McCarthy's Road. Oh, hey, dude, look at this.
Oh, nice. Love it. This I'm
Dude,
gonna
my favorite book of all times, right there.
And then I'm finishing this today. I don't know if you can see it, but it's Into Thin Air, and this book is it is so intense.
Yeah.
But okay, so I saw you had Vonnegut. Is there anything else you're reading?
Right before COVID, I finished up To Kill a Mockingbird, because for some reason I never in high school was ever required to read it. I tell people that now. I'm like, yeah, I read To Kill a Mockingbird for the first time, and they're like, what? Like, how'd you ever get through high school without reading that? I don't know why. I guess I chose something else. That is just.
Did they write it back then?
What's that?
I said, did they write it back then?
Yeah, I was actually in high school before she wrote it. Yeah. It's the most incredible piece of literature I've ever read. Well, Cormac McCarthy's The Road and To Kill a Mockingbird, books that literally made me like cry like 5 times while I read it. Like I was in the Bahamas with my wife prior to COVID, and I was finishing up To Kill a Mockingbird, and she looked over at me and she's like, why are you crying? I'm like, because this book is so good. It's incredible. So good. The other ones I got here, I brought them to me. This one's one of my favorites, Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande. He's a surgeon. And this whole book talks about like how, every industry needs to follow checklists, because your ego gets in the way. And when you think you can do things without following a list of like 10 things that you have to do every single time, you're going to screw up. And the premise of it is like in ICUs, when they were putting chest tubes in patients, doctors would come in and say, I got this. I don't need to follow the Cleveland Clinic's protocol on this, because I know what I'm doing and you can't tell me what I'm doing. But when they made them follow like a 10-point checklist, survival rates of people post chest tube placement skyrocketed.
Wow.
And it just tells you, you know what, you don't know everything. And your life gets busy, your job gets busy, and you're going to miss things. But if you have a 10-point checklist, you just follow it, you get better every day.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It talks about the construction industry, airline industries, a lot of different industries. And the next one I'm going to read next, my wife keeps telling me I need to read this. And I think I actually started it once because I have a bookmark here, but it's Brene Brown's Dare to Lead.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, she's incredible. She has a new podcast out too. So listen to her podcast. Her first podcast talks about FFTs, first fucking times. And when you experience anything that causes you stress in your life, it's probably because it's the first fucking time that you've ever had to deal with that. And COVID's a perfect example of that. Like everything we deal with now, every day is a new challenge. You're like, how do I deal with my staff? How do I deal with my supply chain? How do I deal with, safety? It's the first fucking time, and first fucking times cause a lot of stress.
Yeah.
But when you own it, when you name it, I can't remember the first. It's like name it and own it and decide on how you're going to handle it. And when you do it that way, that 3-step process, you just sail through them. So.
And that's on her podcast. She talks about that.
Yeah, I think it's the first episode, and it's a newish podcast. Like there's only like 4 or 5 episodes so far. So
love it.
Yeah, look it up. Yeah.
All right. Last question here, and then we'll let you get out of here. When all this is over, what are you looking forward to the most? And it could be like a meal, or going to grab a coffee, or going to grab a cocktail with friends. But what is the one thing that you're just like dying to go do once this is all over?
Super simple. I'm gonna walk into the Union 50, which is right across the street from one of my clinics. The Mass Ave Animal Clinic is right across the street from Union 50. And my wife and I, on stressful days and on great days, like when we're going to celebrate something, or when we just, either one of us had the worst day in our life, we just text each other U50 ? And we just know that that's where we're going. And we have this little spot over on the right hand corner of the bar, and any night except for like Friday or Saturday, I can walk in there and take this little corner spot, and I sit on one side, she sits on the other side. We get a grand board of charcuterie. I get a Hendrix and tonic, and she gets a glass of red wine, and it's just like the world is right for us.
Yeah.
The bartenders there, I'm praying that they all come back, because they've just become family to us. So yeah, that and the dugout in my neighborhood. I can't wait to get back to the dugout. So those are my 2 things.
Love it, man. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I love you, Kurt. Hope the best for your businesses. I hope you and your family stay safe and stay healthy, and appreciate your time here today, man.
Yeah, man, keep doing you and keep doing positive, dude. That's what I love about you and your podcast and all your team is you just always focus on the positivity, and that's what we need more of right now, for sure.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah. See you around, buddy.
All right, man. We'll see you later.